Fine. So, good morning, guys. So today class will be I'll be showing how to configure Tomcat server and deploy the sample application in the Tomcat server, and that will be manual. So I'll not be doing via Jenkins server. So I'll show how to configure Tomcat server and deploy the application manually. Then I'll jump into how to configure the same Tomcat application or Tomcat deployment via Jenkins. So let's start with the manual exploration, manual deployment of the Tomcat, right? So let me access the server. I have the server. Okay, so I'm getting into the machine, right? So now, so you need to basically you need to have the Java. So let's see whether I have the Java or not. Yes, I have the Java with version of 1.8. That is like OpenJDK version 8. So now let's configure the Tomcat. So for that, you need to download the Tomcat from the URL, basically from the official Tomcat URL. So I already have the link, right? So I'll be going with that. So download this file, the Tomcat tar file, right? So it's done. So now basically it's it's in the root directory. So it's better if you have this one in under opt directory. So make sure that your applications are running under opt directory. So let me go to the opt directory and yes, I have it here. So now let me untar this. We untar this. Yes, I got this, and let me list. Yes, if you see, I got a directory with Apache, which is unzipped from this particular file, tar file, right? So let me get into this file, and here you will have all the files like binary, configuration, logs, web apps. So there are different directories which are meant to be for different functions. So I'll be telling about that later. So now let's go and start the service basically. So the service will be under bin directory. What is cd bin? And you can see there is catalina.sh or there is a startup.sh. So I'll go with startup.sh, right? So I'll run the startup.sh because it's a shell script which starts the Tomcat server for me. If you see now the Tomcat has started. Now I want to access. So now this is able to open my Tomcat installation on the web browser. So for that, take your public IP address of the instance and go to the machine. Go to the browser, and here you can give the IP address, and by default it runs on 8080, right? Okay, so now what's happening here? It's giving the Jenkins dashboard instead of Tomcat. The reason is my Jenkins and Tomcat are running, both are running on the same port, right? They both are running on the same port. So I don't want this Jenkins to, sorry, like Tomcat to be running on the same port. So we can change the port on either on the Jenkins, we can change the port, or we can change the port on Tomcat. So what I can do is I can change the port. I'll change the port on the Jenkins side. I'll change the port of the Jenkins. So there should be a configuration file. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. It is etc config. Uh, it's a etc config. There should be a Jenkins file, and there is a Jenkins port here. If you see, come down. And if you see, this is the port of Jenkins, right? So I'll change this port to 1890. So I'm changing the port of Jenkins to 1890, right? So then now I'll go to I will restart this Jenkins service, right? So verify the Jenkins service, it should be running fine now. Yes, it's running now. You have to basically change the port number to access the Jenkins server. So I'll keep 1890 and this will be your Jenkins. So if it comes with a Jenkins dashboard with the 1890, it works well. So it's not, it's still searching for this particular IP address on the board. So this means there's something wrong with the security group. So I'll go to the security group of the instance which is attached to, go to this and find the inbound rule if there is an entry of 1890. Right? So this is the inbound rule. So there is no 1890 allowed. So I'll edit this and I'll add the 1890 port. It's a custom port and I'll make it available for all the networks. So this is not recommended in the real time, but I'm just showing for the lab purpose. So now if I initiate the connection, so it should go to the system. So probably it's not still. So let me close the browser and access it again, 1890, and now it is going to Jenkins, right? Guys, now the Jenkins is able to accessible through 1890. So now this is not the one which I wanted to achieve. So I wanted to achieve the 8080 where I'll be able to reach Tomcat server, right? So this is something, still there's something problem with Tomcat server which I'm not unable to start. So let's go for the opt and Apache Tomcat. So get into bin and I'll start up the service. So I started the service 8080. It's 238. Okay, it's still not. Let me see what are the port protocols it's able to listen. Mm-hmm. 1890, not the 1890, and 8080 this should be the default port to access the Tomcat application. Okay, so if you guys can see, this is running on an 8080 port, and this should be accessible. And let me see the inbound rule. It's 8080. It should be able to access through this machine. Okay, let me change this 8080. Okay, there's still something problem. Let's look into this. What is happening? Let me see the process. So it's running. The process is running. Able to see this. Okay, let me stop the service and start it again. shutdown. Shutdown will stop the service. Now let me start the service because I have changed the port, so which basically I didn't stop and start. Yes, that was the problem. Because I changed the port, I didn't stop the service for Apache Tomcat because the port was listening to Jenkins, and then I should have reset the service as the Apache Tomcat is running on 8080 port, right? So yes, I got an Apache Tomcat server up and running. Now I wanted to manage the application. So there is something called Manager app here, right? So if I
Yes,
click
yes.
on this, I get an 403 error because the application in the configuration, I don't have an access to manage an application, right? So
Yes.
in order to do that, I have to configure the roles to configure the roles in configuration so that I can manage the applications. So what is the path, right? So I have to go to the configuration, as as I told you, like I need to go to the configuration, and there is something called Tomcat users.xml. So here where basically you can give the access of the, so this it should be under Tomcat user bracket, right? And it should be under this
Yes, yes.
this block. So come down, and here below this, and yes, here you need to add the role. So you can simply add this role, like role name, manager UI, and Tomcat as a username and Tomcat as a password. Give the role name as a roles as a Tomcat, then manager UI. So this should be sufficient for this. So what I'll give is this is what basically I mentioned, role as a Tomcat, or also I can just give an admin. So now it's going with a manager GUI. I want to manage the application. This should be fair enough, right? So after this, you just you just save this file and make sure you let restart the service, right? I will shut down the Tomcat server and start the Tomcat server again. So if I click on manager app, okay, so it still says that it cannot be accessible, right? It still says it's a 403 error. So the reason is I have given the manager credentials to manage the application, but the scope of this application is limited. So where only the local machine can access it, but we are accessing the application from outside the
Outside.
machine, right? So for that, you need to edit few more details. That is, go to the configuration, and there should be a setting called, I'm sorry, not on the configuration, go to web apps. So this is where basically the applications have been managed, right? So go to web apps and go to manager, and there should be meta inf, right? So here there should be some file called context.xml. So go to this context.xml and edit this particular block. So if you see this, this is the block where you allow the application to you give still more application access scope, right? So
Yes,
add
yes.
this and give dot star, which makes it allowed by anywhere, right? So save this file and come back again. So then shut down the system or shut down the service and start the service again, right? So Tomcat has started. Let me refresh this. Yes, I'm able to access. I'll go to the manager app, and it asks for the Tomcat. It asks for the username and password. So my username and password is Tomcat. Yes, if you see now, I'm able to get into the application manager app, right? So
Yes.
let me download the sample application. So sample application for deploying in Tomcat. So you can get a sample var file. So just click and download here, and you have got the sample.var file downloaded. So now you have to deploy this. Okay. So Deployment, you can just select a WAR file to deploy and it comes and store it here. And basically my WAR file name is sample, and here if you see there is no sample, right? So let me
Yes, sir.
deploy that. So go to choose file, downloads. So this is the file which I got downloaded. Open this and deploy, right? So if you see this, the sample application is deployed now. So if I click on this, I should be able to see my application. And if you see the URL as well, so this would be the URL of the application. Now, for example, if I'll just access this, right? So I'll be able to reach the Tomcat application, but inside that I have an application called sample. If I give the extension of that particular application name, it will be redirecting to the application, right?
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
this is how this is the method to deploy the application manually in the Tomcat server, not through Jenkins. Any questions, guys?
No, sir. No, sir.
All right,
Understand.
great. So, so this is all about how to deploy the applications, and I'll be showing how to deploy the same application via Jenkins, right? Okay.